Tune in tonight. Minnesota tonight. Minnesota tonight.
Tonight, we'll take 10 to talk about Islamophobia, Donald Trump's safe word. Islamophobia is the fear of Muslims, Islam, and basic logic. Like all other prejudices, it stems from ignorance, misunderstanding, and Fox News. Let's take a look.
These people live to kill us, they live to attack us, they live to horrify us, and when people pull back, that's exactly what they want.
And therefore, I think that we ought to be very selective in allowing any Muslim or future Chinese students in here.
Hans and Sven are not on the FBI's most wanted list.
So they looked at the Quran and said, grab a meat cleaver and hack somebody up? Fantastic.
I think it's time for profiling, though, don't you, Ange? I think it's time for profiling because
the
profile has been Middle Eastern Muslims who have blown people up or attempted to blow people up over the last 15 years.
Let me make it clear. I don't have a problem with profiling. I think Pete King, the congressman who's the head of the House Terror Subcommittee, when he talks about that the police have to get in and infiltrate the Muslim community, I completely agree with that.
I think that we should be able to put in listening devices in there. Is that possible? No.
No Muslim students coming here with visas. No more mosques being built here until you stand up and denounce what's happened in the name of your prophet.
They're openly telling us they want to take over the country. They're openly committing treason. They're openly Islamifying areas. And it has to end. And that's what we're saying. It's like you don't keep adding to the problem.
Well,
but, yeah.
Well, Tommy, we got your back, and we'll definitely look to keep in touch. And I really think it's it's great what you're doing.
If we burn down your mosque here, you'd be really upset.
So, we didn't write this, but can we just take a moment? What the hell is future Chinese? Are we profiling Chinese people 100 years in the future? They're coming back to terrorize Americans? Okay, just wanted to make that note clear before we continue. So, as you can see, the entire programming of Fox News is devoted to converting viewers from open-minded human beings to an army of paranoid conspiracy theorist chihuahuas that constantly shiver in fear of Sharia law being imposed in Grand Marais. Anti-Muslim rhetoric is becoming increasingly common and intense across the United States, and Minnesota is no exception. It's easy to be Islamophobic and almost required if you're a Republican running for office. Meanwhile, if Starbucks changes a coffee cup, Christian groups hold a vigil and start considering caribou as an alternative. And while Christians may see the phrase "happy holidays" as a hate crime, Muslims in Minnesota know all too well what a real hate crime looks like. Nowhere is this more clear than in St. Cloud, one of Minnesota's diversest cities, where residents include Lutherans and Catholics. Yet since 2000, East African communities in the city have grown rapidly, and many of the white residents are not so happy about this. Bullying and discrimination against Muslim students in St. Cloud public high schools has become so intense that the Federal Department of Education has sent in members of the Civil Rights Division to investigate, which sounds honestly like the saddest sequel to 21 Jump Street ever created. In the investigation, Somali students reported that they had been spat on, mocked, accused of being in ISIS, and threatened by students. One student was even thrown down a flight of stairs by members of the football team. The worst part of this is that these bullies grew up watching Arthur. Let that sink in for a second. Arthur, an after-school special starring an aardvark turned bear with a rabbit best friend, couldn't teach tolerance. What will teach tolerance if that can't? Unfortunately, a four-eyed, snub-nosed bear cartoon would probably receive better treatment in St. Cloud's public schools than this human being who happens to be Muslim. But if we want to stop bullying in St. Cloud schools, we should probably ask St. Cloud adults to do so first. Within the last couple of years, adults in St. Cloud have poured pig intestines and human shit on Somali-owned businesses. I don't know what's sadder, that they just had a bunch of pig intestines hanging out in the fridge, or that they chose to use those pig intestines for evil. And this is not just happening in St. Cloud. This past week, a Minnesota man and frontman of a Sugar Ray cover band, Matthew William Gust, was arrested for firebombing a Somali-owned cafe in Grand Forks, North Dakota. A few days earlier, that same cafe was vandalized with spray-painted swastikas and a warning to, quote, go home. So far, the Grand Forks Police Department has called these incidents unrelated. Really? Unrelated? I mean, what kind of detectives are you? I would hate to watch your Law and Order episode. What do you think, Bob? These events are unrelated? These events are related? Oh, I don't know. Well, probably. I mean, it's a big city, and there's no way to tell. End of the episode. Now, this has all happened in a state that has long prided itself on welcoming outsiders because, let's face it, we need the warmth. Yet, beneath the lily-white snow lies a history of fear and aggression towards Minnesotans considered to be un-American. Over the years, the definition of un-American has included Native Americans, African Americans, the Irish, the Germans, the Polish, the Jews, the Dutch, the Hmong, the Cylons, Smurfs, and even the Finnish. That's right, the Finnish. The only thing the Finnish are known for are great dental care and excellent public schools, yet they're known as un-American. Well, that makes sense, because nothing is more un-American than having your shit together as a country. That's right, just 100 years ago, many Minnesotans feared and despised the Finnish. The sentiment was so strong that in 1918, a young Finnish-American man was tarred, feathered, and lynched in Duluth, Minnesota. This was also the case in Minneapolis. Up until the 1940s, the city was known as the most anti-Semitic city in the country. And let's just take a moment to remember who our competition was. For several decades, Minneapolis businesses and organizations and even entire neighborhoods barred Jews. Jews couldn't even get a AAA membership in Minneapolis, which is ridiculous because you don't even need a car to get a AAA membership. For a Minneapolis AAA membership, you needed two things. One, you need a heartbeat. Two, you need foreskin. Look, almost every ethnic group in America has been deemed un-American at some point. So, welcome to the club, Muslim Americans. Pretty soon you'll be able to discriminate against other ethnic groups just like Finnish Americans. Because that's the true American dream, to one day be accepted enough to discriminate. And as far as that may seem away, there are signs that this day may come. Thanks to Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison and District Attorney Anthony Lugar, Governor Mark Dayton, the three of which combine to make the hardest game of government fuck, marry, kill. Because let's face it, they're all marriage material. Guys, let's take Congressman Keith Ellison. He's the nation's first Muslim American elected to Congress, and he's been a prominent leader when it comes to Muslim American rights in Minnesota. Time after time, Ellison has communicated the necessity of a diverse state. He's like our political Fonz. He's always punching jukeboxes, sliding beers down to the guy at the end of the bar, protecting the rights of religious and ethnic minorities, and you damn well know his hair looks perfect today. Ellison recently made news for helping start a petition to ban Donald Trump from St. Paul, which many people thought jumped the shark, but I actually really liked it. District Attorney Anthony Lugar, on the other hand, Minnesota native and judicial sex icon, has become strongly involved with Ellison and the Muslim American rights movement. Using his authority and insight and smoky brown eyes, Lugar helped open a new mosque in St. Anthony after 2 years of legal dispute. And the third ray of sunshine, and probably the one I would most like to marry, is Governor Mark Dayton. And come on, just look at that face. When over 20 other state governors announced that they would stop Syrian refugees from entering their states, Governor Dayton had this to say.
This is Minnesota, and you have every right to be here. And anybody who can't accept your right to be here, and that this is Minnesota, should find another state. It really should go somewhere else.
Immediately following this statement, liberal arts majors across the state and a certain satirical show host began to throw underwear at the gubernatorial equivalent of Steven Tyler. These elected officials make me proud to live in Minnesota, but we should not get too proud of just not being assholes. We should actively work to make sure that our state becomes a place that everyone, regardless of their background, can call home. and get a damn AAA membership. Thanks. Good night, Minnesota.
Minnesota tonight.